Hello and welcome to our live session. Well, we have an amazing panel of experts. Yes, all here to help you with your public speaking, to help you to get that confidence to achieve career, wherever that is for you. It could be in your business, in your career, wherever it is that you need to have a voice. You need to be out there sharing all those thoughts, opinions, and ideas you have without any hesitation at all. That is what we are going to be discussing and sharing today's session. Before we get going, I'll say we have an amazing panel. So I'm going to ask each one to give a little introduction so you can get to know a little bit more about them and maybe how they can help you as well. So let's get going with that straight in. We're going to start off first of all with Ernode. Welcome, Ernode.
Hi, well, thank you, Andy, for the show. Yeah, so my name is Arnold. I'm the owner of Learn Global. I've been in public speaking for, let's say, over 5 years. As a tech guy, listen, going public speaking, last thing I was on my wish, on my list, but I've taken the action, and yeah, after 5 years, I can talk for hours now in public. So yeah, over to you, Faisal.
Arnold, thank you so much. My name is Faisal Kokar. I am a men's dating coach and a global speaker. And like Arnold, I was in tech background, and because of the tech background, I was very, very shy in front of the camera and with social interactions as well. So being a public speaker, going out and speaking, oh my God, I had to go through so many challenges. And I love this room because we discuss some of the challenges and the emotions that come with it. So I'm really looking forward to sharing some of the things I've learned and also learning from my fellow colleagues. Over to you, Stefan.
Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. Stefan Bollinger, or Stephen Bollinger, or Stefan Bollinger, as my mom would call me. Actually, she only calls me Stefan when I've done something wrong. So otherwise, it's more like, hey, you. My background, I'm a professional photographer, but I've been speaking and singing and acting and dancing on stage for, gosh, 35 years, something like that. So if you wonder, yes, all of those gray hairs and all those wrinkles, they are earned. And that's what I do. I take photos, but I still talk on stage with a background in musical theater for 15 years. And if you wonder my background, as in real life background, I'm in a recording studio right now, even though it is 10 in the night here in Australia. And with that, I'll hand it over to Papa Was a Rolling Stone, Bill.
Hi, everybody. Bill Gannon. Thank you, Stefan. That's what that's my handle. The privilege is all mine to be here with this great group. I'm Bill Gannon. I reside in New Orleans in the United States of America. It is 6 a.m. here, and that's why I look like this. But I would love to participate in the High Achievers Club room on public speaking. I get a tremendous amount of benefit from listening to my fellow panelists, but especially you in the audience when you ask us questions, and I hope you'll do that. I've had a 35-year career in B2B sales at the Fortune 500 level as well as entrepreneurial level, seen just countless number of presentations, given countless number of presentations, and have tried to take that knowledge and consolidate it into a very targeted consulting program that focuses on great public speaking, great sales conversations, great presentations, and basically ways to communicate better. So privileged to be here. Over to our host, Andy O'Sullivan.
Thank you, gentlemen. And as you see, we have a fabulous panel here today, don't we? Each one's got experience in different ways. Each one's been on their own journey to grow their skills and to be out there today giving presentations, to be out there speaking in public. And that's what we will be helping you with today. And by way of introduction to myself, I is somebody who never had that confidence. I used to spend so long sitting in meetings after meeting, worrying about whether I should speak up, whether I had something of value to share. And as I always say, one of two things always happens when you sit there worrying about whether you should say something. Either the moment passes and it's now too late, the meeting's moved on, or even worse, maybe somebody else says it and they get the credit. They get the glory for what ultimately was your idea. So like some of the people we have here today, I never had that confidence. So again, I had to develop those skills, develop that belief that, you know what, I have got something of value to say and I can give presentations. And today I'm a 5 times best-selling author of books on public speaking, pitching and presenting, and speaking internationally, helping people to develop those skills, which is exactly what we will be covering here today as well. Now, when we think of giving a presentation or any form of public speaking, it could be a small team to your colleagues, it could be standing up in the front of the room giving a bigger presentation. When we have content we want to deliver, when we know what we want to talk about, one of the big issues I always find for people when they're going to come up, they've got this presentation looming that they're going to be speaking at, and it builds the anxiety, it's the fear, the worry and the anxiety of, what if I forget my words? What if I forget my words? It's such a big thing, right? Worrying about that. So I want to look at this in a couple of different ways. So first of all, I want to look at, why do you think we're worrying about forgetting our word? What causes that worry initially? And then once we've talked about that for a little bit, what we're going to go on and cover is some ways, some strategies to help you not forget your words, so you can be in a better position so you won't be worried about them. But before we do that, we'll talk about, why do we worry? What's causing it? Maybe in that moment for you, it could be in the days or weeks, and it was definitely weeks for me before I ever spoke in public. So Bill, I'll come to you first. What do you think is some of those causes, some of the things that when we're in the moment, say maybe an hour before the meeting, a minute before the meeting, that presentation, why are we getting so worried about forgetting our words?
I think this goes right to stage fright. This goes right to the moment. We've built up. Here comes the moment. And now all of a sudden, all the things that happen to us anatomically, neurologically, start to short circuit. All the trust we had in ourselves starts to flow away. And we begin to get that little sense of panic. And generally, the panic has the same theme for everybody. What happens if I just fail up there? And that's a pretty terrible way to approach something important. What happens if I fail? If we could line up pro athlete, pro performers after pro performers, and they have been relentlessly coached and trained that this is your moment. This is when we unleash all that great potential. They look on it with, we have the Olympics coming up. Every starting gun, every beginning is all about focusing on the positive. And you hear this in sports interviews with athletes all the time, always focusing on the positive outcome. What happens is our nerves basically come along for the ride. Everybody gets nerves. Every panelist here gets nerves. And nerves with a negative perception of what's going to happen turns into fear. Nerves with a positive, this is going to be great, is excitement. We want to try to convert that fear to excitement, but without the training, without the practice, we generally get overwhelmed with a feeling of, this is going to be terrible. And what is everybody going to think of me? So this is probably one of the reasons why we get this short circuit, this terrible brain meltdown as we go up. And the next thing you know, we forget our lines. So turning that fear into positivity is really, to me, that's the way you attack this. But I think that's why it happens, Andy. One of the reasons anyway.
Yeah, great shares there, Bill. And a couple of great points you've raised there is that, first of all, I think I try to remember how many times people come to me and they just want to get rid of all their nerves. They don't want any nerves at all.
Right.
And it's as though then, to me, some nerves are okay, right? Which shows we kind of care, doesn't it? That we're interested, we're invested in it, rather than imagine, approaching, giving a presentation, going to the supermarket, there's just like nothing there. It means, in essence, nothing to you. So I think some nerves are okay. It's getting that balance, isn't it, between the nerves and some nerves and the anxiety, the panic that we can have. in the build-up. And I say, for me, I remember lying in bed on a Sunday night 2 weeks before my presentation, having that panic, the sweaty palms and the belly going in knots, right? Just thinking about it. And that leads me to the second point, which I've actually asked Stefan on this one, because you mentioned there one of the good things there about how we visualize it, how we visualize what we're going to be doing. And I think you're right that often we do visualize it going wrong, and sports stars visualize it going right. Stefan, how did it come? And obviously you have a big theatrical background, where I imagine there's, you speaking to the big audiences in the theatre. Is there some strategy that you used or were taught on how you mentally prepare, mentally approach it?
Well, interesting. I thought you come to me because of the sports superstars, and in that case, I would sit properly and put my chest out, and along the years, I lost my six-pack somewhere, but whoever found it, please return it. I would be very much appreciative. I say two things. Yes, what Bill said is 100% correct. We all have nerves. But isn't nerves something absolutely incredibly beautiful? We talked about this probably about half a year ago on Clubhouse when we talked about nerves. And I said, look, when I look at my hands, there's millions of nerves in here. And all they do is submit the signal to my brain. So I wouldn't know if I hold the glass enough without falling, or if I hold it too much and it breaks. So it's really just a question of what do we do with that signal that arrives up here in the upper inches. And we decide how we want to read that information that comes to us. And when we put on those nerves without even touching something, because we're afraid of a presentation or going on stage and there's like 2,000 or 3,000 people, that really is weight that we put onto our own shoulders. However, it is natural. So for me, I had to build a routine. First of all, it was always a question of how much practice did I put into it beforehand. Because if I'm not rock solid when I'm by myself without any outside pressure, I do not have the confidence to be super strong and calm when I go in front of people. So for me, it always started with a lot of practice, a lot of rehearsals in musical theater, of course, by myself, and then on stage and with others. Because even more so, you can be in a recording studio and rehearse with your partner, and that song that you sing or that duet may be perfect, but the only person that you have to impress in that moment is the sound engineer. Now you replace that and you have a live audience, people that you don't know. You cannot repeat it. It's all live. If you mess it up, it's done. There is no rewind or anything. So for me, it was always practice by myself, practice with others, practice on stage if I can. If I even now have a presentation, even though I've done it so many times, I want to get there before anyone else and walk up to that podium just by myself and quickly touch it and make sure that I know where the microphone is and where the little clicker is, all these sort of things. So all these routines that I've developed for myself, and I believe every person has to find their own, helps me to be excited, to turn those nerves that come down my hands into excitement rather than fear. So for me, it's breathing. For me, it's going there early. For me, it's being able to walk the stage without anyone else, if that's at all possible. If that means I speak at a convention and the convention starts at 8 and my talk is at 11, I'll be there at 7 in the morning, because I want to touch that podium if possible. I want to get the feel of how long does it take me from the moment they call my name out to walk up there and stand there. Does it make a big difference? No. But every little thing that I can do to calm my nerves and to get a feel of how much pressure I have to put on, that is something that I will apply. And again, it's rehearsing, and then it's finding my routine, be it in a corner, warming my voice up, getting a proper workout for my body, walking the stage, being there early, etc. And with all the different people that I talk to, everybody seems to have their own routine, and there is no cookie cutter 1, 2, 3 solution, but there is a 1, 2, 3 solution for each individual. We just have to spend the time not just on our content, but maybe also on ourselves, to find what our personal solution is to get those nerves under control.
It is very much right. Everybody is different. Everybody visualizes things certain ways, worries in different ways. It's absolutely right. We have different things that we can do. Some people love, I know, just before a presentation to go for a run. Some people like to go to a quiet room and be on their own for a bit. I love to go into the room and chat to people and be with people. That's what my routine is. It is very much finding out what works for you. But I go back really to about how we mentally, the visualization, because we can do that in the moment and look at it. I'd say, and Bill touched on this, how sports bars see themselves succeeding. And so first of all, I know you coach men, and that's on the dating side. And I know from my own side that when it's come to approaching a girl, for example, and this is kind of similar to me, that I visualized it all going wrong. How she's going to reject me, how she's all going to, maybe throw a glass of wine over me if I'm outside. You see it all negatively. And
gosh, really approaching.
That's how I saw it, right? I didn't see you later about that. But, my presentations were the same way. I would see it all going wrong. My mental approach was totally wrong. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on how you maybe coach people, tell people, or even do it yourself, that mental preparation.
You know what? I think approaching a woman, an attractive woman that you find attractive, is probably more difficult than maybe public speaking, because that's one thing I see guys just completely shock and freeze at. Okay, not every guy does this, but most guys, it's a very natural response they have. So they see someone and they have this compelling need. So they have this conflict is, I want to go and speak to her, and there's no way I want to go and speak to her. So I have this dichotomy of battle of power struggle. So what they have is they have this picture of, before they have the experience, they have this picture of, I'm going to go and talk to her, have an expectation. So when they go and speak to someone, even when you're going on stage and you have a speech or a presentation, so what you've done is you formulated an expectation. And when you go out and you deliver it and it doesn't go to expectations, one of the difficult things in our psychology is when reality doesn't meet our expectations. That's where we have a real struggle in psychology. That's where we have a real struggle, is I had this expectation, I'm going to flow it through. Oh my God, I missed something, or I didn't say something. And then what happens is when we don't meet that expectations, our overthinking brain, our ruminating brain then starts going into a spiral. And it goes into this spiral thinking, I've done a bad job here. And I did an incomplete job here. And because I did an incomplete job here, then it goes on to another thought. Oh, then it's not good enough. And then it goes from, I'm not good enough. That means I'm terrible. And then we start shaming ourselves. And that's when it starts becoming really painful, is when we start getting into the toxic shaming ourselves. And that internalization is, I'm not good enough. Rather than a healthy way to approach this would be, hey, I did something. It didn't go to expectation, but that's okay. It doesn't make me a bad person. When the guy goes out on a date or approaches someone, and she'll reject him, he'll get refused. Sometimes it can go really bad and she might throw something, glass of wine or something, or my experience was like, go away. And that was my first experience. So that experience really burned and etched a really, poignant event in my life. So then I had this reference point is, if I go back again, I'm going to experience the same thing, or I'm going to be in danger of experiencing the thing. So all it is like Bill said and Stefan said, it's just managing those emotions and saying, hey, these are my expectations. And far more, it's worse in our heads than is actually in the real world. So, like you said, managing our body, managing our breathing, managing our approach, and constantly practicing on this will really elevate your confidence when it comes to this. Back to you, Andy.
I'm having terrible high school flashbacks, Andy. I'm just going to tell you right now.
So you're having what?
I'm having terrible high school flashbacks as
well, what did you get thrown? A pencil case or something? Or
awful stuff.
Everything. Go away, Bill. What are you doing?
Well, maybe if you would have gone, Andy, if you would have gone instead of with wine, if you would have gone for some heavy cocktails, maybe that would have been just a thought.
Yeah, like James Bond. Yeah, martini, that's it. And the suit.
That's how they go to the right places. I don't think if I was thinking of wine.
Yeah, stronger alcohol always seems to work out better. That's always a better ending with the heavier you go in the alcohol. Always has
hard reset.
Bonus tips here coming along.
Golden nuggets.
For the alcohol side of it. Yeah. It's interesting though. I'm going to link this back to what Father just shared. He's talking about how maybe the first time you approach a girl, you get rejected. That becomes your reference point. And that's what you go back to the next time you're going to approach a girl, right? And so many people have had it, they could be, I speak to people maybe they're in their 40s and they're got to give a presentation. They've been avoiding all their life. But the reference point they have is when they were at university or school. And they had a presentation and it didn't go well. It's 10, 20, 30 years ago. And yet that's the reference point. Same as approaching a girl, which is why I brought that in, right? That's the and they go back to it. It went wrong as far as they perceive it back all those years ago. And now today they're going to give a presentation and they feel it's going to do exactly the same. And yet, that everybody who's in that presentation 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years, do they remember it? Do they think about how it went? No, but we do, right? We end up focusing on it. And there's a number of times, that people said to me after their presentation, "Oh, it's really bad. I didn't do that. I forgot that." I thought, I never noticed. I generally didn't, right? It's just, I think one of the key things I would say to people is, well, we never know what people are going to say, do we? So if they forget it, they don't say it, or they say different words or phrases, right? None of us know. And yet we can really, as you say, focus on it, worry about that's something we forgot to do, forgot to show this, say this, or whatever, and panic and worry about it. And yet nobody knows. And if we do make a mistake, say, nobody worries about it. I used to think the same. I used to think that when I woke up the next day once after presentation, first thing I thought of was that presentation. Yeah, I bet none of my colleagues who were in that meeting thought about it when they woke up in the morning, when they got out of bed. They weren't thinking about it. But that's how we build that pressure. And that's how we worry about it. But I'm going to take a slightly different angle as well. Oh, sorry, Stephen, go.
Yeah, I just want to add one little thing, that sometimes those reference points that we create can also be completely wrong. As in, there's a tiny little story. So we did a lot of performances singing, and there was a very, very sad song. And we delivered it, and usually people, at the end of the song, they applaud. And the more often you do it, that's, a little bit more, a little bit less. But, and I think some of you already know the back end of that story, but I had to go on stage 2 days after my father died and had to perform. And so I went up and up comes this sad song. And so inside of me, I sang that song for my dad. The audience didn't know anything. And the song was finished and there was no applause. It was dead silent. And of course, for me, I thought, okay, I totally screwed it up. Obviously, today was not my day. I'm not in the right mood and everything, because the assumption was from previous experience that after the song, people applaud. But nobody applauded. It was dead silent. So when I was backstage, I was very, very disappointed, because this song on that day actually meant something to me. And I spoke to the night manager, the night director, and I said, "I'm so sorry that I completely screwed this up. It's not my night." And he looked at me and said, "What are you talking about? That's for a song like that. That is the highest applause or the most appreciation from an audience after you sing something sad, that they're all stop and think rather than clap. Nothing is stronger and more, I guess, they really felt you. That's why they felt it's not appropriate to clap. So this was actually the bigger applause than if they would all stand and clap. So my perception of what is an appropriate reaction from the audience was 180 degrees wrong. And I thought I screwed it up. And he says, "No, this is the first time you actually delivered." Oops. So that's my I guess experience, that sometimes you also make something up in your head because certain things have happened. And if it then goes 180 degrees, maybe that's actually not as bad as you thought. Just a little extra story. And by the way, long time ago, but I do remember that night. I don't remember many of the nights that we performed, but that night I do remember forever.
I can imagine it naturally would stand out. But the reason, right? First of all, I love that being the first time. Was it your phrase you said? First time you done it right, when there was no applause. But absolutely, that's the perception that we can often have when we see things, when we hear things. I think in life, let alone when we are performing, giving presentations, we see what's going on around us, and we just, I don't know, maybe reflect our insecurities, for example, when it's public speaking, don't we? What we see. Well, I think last time we were talking about that we can maybe see somebody yawning and assume that we're boring them. We can see them checking their phone and assume they're bored. Not they've got an urgent message, not that they're just tired from a sick child. We put out our perceptions to them, as Stephen doing the same. Unless he wants to take a photo and put it on social media. But, that's what we can do, right? We just push out our perceptions to people. And then one of the things, and I'm going to ask Ernad, this is where you're best placed, I think, Ernad, on this. One of the, talking of perceptions and how we view things, is that when it comes to speaking in a foreign language, because that's another perception that people have, that people can't understand me, my English isn't very good, that makes me nervous, and now I'm nervous and worried I'm going to forget my words, and everything's going to go wrong as well. So we now bring in this extra part, which is why I ask you on this, Erna, about when we speak or giving a presentation in a foreign language, these extra perceptions, these extra insecurities and worries that build on us. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, and the thing is you always have that. It doesn't matter if especially because my mother tongue is in Dutch, and of course my second language is English. And the thing is you all, with both. Let's say I started public speaking in English, so for me it's the opposite. Literally, if I need to deliver a presentation in Dutch, it will be a totally almost a mindset change, because the thing is when I did it for the first time, I was like, oh, will it be okay? Will they? Because I also used quite a lot of English, terminologies and all that stuff, because I couldn't find that properly in Dutch, and that was for me a challenge. So for me, it was the opposite. So instead of doing it in let's say my second language, I was struggling in my mother tongue. So it's the way of, this is what I find afterwards, is you need to get used. Well, let's say if you do it more often, you will get comfortable in it. You will get more secure, and then it's all fine. But when it's for the first time, I always recommend everybody who speaks a second language, or maybe doing a presentation in their mother tongue, just to prepare more, because in the first, second, third, maybe fifth time, you need more time to practice and to prepare. And the thing is that, for example, like an impromptu. So, for example, if the impromptu in English is fine. You can ask me questions, I can give you answers straight away. when it's, for example, in a Dutch or in German or whatever language I speak, I have to think more, or think twice, or I just have to ask them to repeat the question because I need to digest the question. But again, if you do it more often, and I'm this experience was far way back, but now when you do this more often, you're having more chats, more interviews, more in whatever language, you will become more and more comfortable. So it's all about doing it. It's if you've done it once, and again, for me, in the first time when I did my presentation in Dutch the first time, yes, I had this experience about, well, I had a little bit of bad experience. I said, I'm never going to do it again. But that's not the attitude. The attitude is to, yes, do it again, make even more mistakes so you learn from it. Just keep doing it, keep doing until you're happy, or let's say until you think it's all good. Well, I will say nobody's, well, perfect. I know a lot of people have different thoughts about that, but nobody's perfect. And the thing is because we are not perfect, that's a good time to learn. And I said, it's again, it's something you have to do. You can have a bad experience and then say like, no, I'm not going to do that anymore. But just keep doing it. And another thing was, and that was for me, especially when it comes to speaking a different language, is the audience. I was always thinking about the audience, not about, let's say, what I need to deliver. It was always like, oh, I'm just going to use this. Oh, I've used that. Oh, maybe that's the wrong sentence. Oh, maybe the grammar's not right. Oh, maybe it's all these little things went through my head. But also, you will, if you do it more often, you will manage to get, well, so I'm going to say get rid of this voices because they're still in your head, but you are, let's say, it's easier to ignore them. But yeah, it's all about doing it. Just go there, deliver it. And the other thing, because we are now more digital instead of going physical, digital is much easier than when you go physical on stage, because physical on stage, and I understand, well, transition from 2020 again, from on stage going to online, it was much because you have, well, I'm not going to say that you don't have a world audience when it's a physical meeting, but when you have a physical, let's say, physical event, you have quite a lot of, let's say, if you do it in the UK, you have people from the UK. If you Germany, you have a lot of people from Germany. Netherlands, you have a lot of people from Netherlands. But when I went digital, you got the whole world. And then if you let's say you're gonna worry about your language, well, that's the last thing you have to do. That's the last thing you need to do. The first thing you need to do is to focus on how to serve the world indirectly instead of worrying about what you're going to say. So again, just keep doing it. Whatever experience you're going to have, even if you got the worst experience by today, just keep going tomorrow. Back to you, Andy.
It is very much a case of, we think we have to be perfect when we're giving a presentation. But it's the only thing, I think, in the world that we think we can just do once and be perfect. Nothing else. We want to ride a bicycle. We want to drive a car. We know we've got to practice. We've got to learn the skills, develop them, keep doing it, That's how we get there. And I was just checking to check on this. What languages do you speak?
Oh dear. Let's start with this. No, I speak English then. English. Dutch, German, Spanish, French, and I'm learning Farsi, Arabic, and Chinese. So,
it's 8. Yeah. 8. You're on 8 languages. Faisal, do you speak any?
So I speak 2. So English and Urdu.
Urdu. Okay, so you're 2. Stefan, what ones do you speak? I know you speak quite a few.
Ooh, there's a big difference, and Arnold will agree with me. There's a big difference between understanding languages and being able to have a decent conversation in it. So if I can watch films and follow conversations in 5 languages, however, I am not 100% confident to have a really deep, meaningful, emotional conversation in all 5. So if you say, how many do you properly speak that you can do so on stage, it would be 3. Do I understand way more? It would be in 5. Am I comfortable in how many? None.
None at all. We're going to go with 5 then on that. I think we'll go with 5. Bill, I know you're still learning English, but is there anything else?
You speak good when time is. Yes. I can listen to tens of foreign language films as long as they have English subtitles.
Yeah, that's good.
As long as they got the subtitles, or they're dubbed in, and you're okay with any language.
Well, he
Right.
speaks American. Does
Yeah,
that count?
not really. That's why I said he's still learning English, because unfortunately that difference. But no, we get there. We're going to get Bill there. We'll pull him over.
We
One day.
believe in Z's and not too many extra U's. That's our big thing over here.
Yeah, I know. We get there. Go on, Bernard.
Yes, well, this is fun because when I lived in the States, I was so confident with my English, and then I moved to the UK, where things were totally different. And one of the examples is I was I needed a £20 note, but a £20 note in America they call it a £20 bill. So when I was in the UK, I was looking for, I went to the bank, and I just need to exchange, and I said, could I have everything in 20 pounds bills? And they were looking at me. It's like, bills? What do you mean bills? Would you like a receipt or something? I said, no,
Yeah.
just bills. I said, oh, you mean £20 notes? I said, like, yes, something like that. And there are more things, and even with spelling, with collar with an O or U, or just only an O, and all these little things. So yeah, I thought I was confident with the English in America, but then when I go to the UK, I lost my confidence. But that's always the same. And Stefan knows this with German, for example. You can speak German in whatever area you live, but when you go to Austria, go to Switzerland, different challenges.
Different challenges. Well, somebody who only speaks English, not saying I struggle too much with, but it is all. But again, said that even within the country, there's different dialects, aren't there? So you can struggle sometimes. You hear the different dialects and different words and different phrases that mean different things, even in the same UK. But so we have been talking all about so far. We've been talking about the worry, the concerns of forgetting our words. We've been talking about some of the things where we've been focusing, and maybe some ideas where we can maybe be aware of what we're doing. For example, the last point we were covering how our language and accents can affect us as well, and how we focus. So I'd love to delve in now, maybe some approaches that we can take when it comes to preparing a presentation or speaking in public. I'll throw this open to who wants to go first. Some ideas of what we can do. I know Stefan shared a few earlier, but let's delve in a bit more. Some tangible thoughts of what we could do when we're going to prepare to help us maybe take away that worry and be better prepared for giving a presentation. So we're not so worried about forgetting our words. I feel a bit more ready to go. Who would like to start us off by a hand raise? I think would be the best thing. Bill, go, my friend.
I love your comment earlier, Andy, about talking, if you can, with the crowd or the people. It doesn't even have to be a crowd. It can be 10 people. It can be 7 people you speak to. But I really like the idea of going out to the group and shaking a couple of hands and introducing myself informally, asking where they're from. And it really just starts to put you in the room with them instead of being in the room in front of them. And I think that's, for me, a public speaking desire. I strive to be part of the room. I want to be in control of the room, but I feel better when I'm part of the crowd, part of the dialogue, and not the giver of it all while they sit and listen. So those casual chats, those warming, if you will, to the crowd by introducing yourself one-to-one, I find goes, for me, I feel the blood pressure go down. I feel those nerves get under control, and I'm ready to go. So that's one of the tips anyway.
And Bill, I love doing that. As I always chat to people. I just feel that you become part of it. You can learn something you can incorporate into the speech at the time when you're giving it. It could be a conversation. You could reference people. But I think it's a great way, because what I used to do was I'd go into a room, I'd sit quietly in the corner, fold my arms, and go into the world of worry, worrying about everything. You know, you get into our head and just sit there stressing and worrying. And I've even sat there crossing out my notes and changing what I was going to say.
Yeah.
And let's be honest, are we going to think of a better idea in the minutes before we speak than we have in the weeks beforehand? You know, we don't, but it's that anxiety. So I very much love that. I think it is being part of it. I love that phrase you said there, was it with the room, not in front of the room, as a mindset. I think that's a great way of summarizing that. It's very much a case of being there. That's what, for me, always works. And I'd encourage people, be part of it, talking, get out of head, not just sitting there worrying and stressing about it. Is it? Erno, some thoughts from you, some tips maybe you could share?
Yeah, well, if it's about like presentations, and when it comes about, you know, getting your words, especially when it comes to different languages, I will say with presentations, first of all, do not worry about the slides. Just worry about what you would like to deliver, and do not use too much words, and you know, just don't use it as that the presentation is going to be presenting instead of you. Now, when it comes to with different languages, so when you need to present in a different language, if it's your first time, just, you know, prepare like 3 or 4. You need more time, so 3, 4, 5 weeks will do. And the thing is that I'm not going to say that you're going to need to deliver a perfect and like the perfect speech, but I think it will be great if you're going to be, you know, an authority on the stage, and then whatever language you're going to speak to, well, to be that authority. Now, another thing is that when it comes with forgetting words, I always say the show needs to go on. So whatever words, whatever sentence you're going to forget in that presentation or whatever you're going to deliver, I'm not going to say that you have to make something up, but just use the words that come in your mind, and that, well, it needs to be related with the presentation you're going to do. So if you, for example, talk about, let's say, water, and then you forgot your, let's say, a couple of sentences, don't try to talk about, you know, a carpenter or a car, because it made the whole relation is not there, nothing got related. But if you talk about water and you forgot that sentence, and you talk about like, well, what if the future, let's say, future cars got run on hydro, whatever, that got something to do with water, people will resonate that, oh, like, okay, you know, hydro, water, whatever. So it's always good to, whatever happens, whatever let's say speech you're going to do, whatever you're going to forget, show needs to go on. And let's say, and that's another thing, because when you have done more speeches, if you have, you know, done more presentations, you are confident in finding the right things, finding the right words, whatever you're going to deliver. So language, yes, different language, take more time. Presentations, don't worry much about the slides, but don't let the presentation take over you, because you see that quite a lot. And of course, when you're going to forget some words, show needs to go on. So I want to say, just keep talking as long as it's in the same subject, and not talk about something else that put people off, or maybe people are going to think, what the heck are you talking about? Back to you, Andy.
I did make me laugh, the idea. Yeah, you've given a financial presentation, you forget your words, you start talking about your pet dog because you just forgot what you're going to say. That would be rather funny to see, wouldn't it?
And just another thing, do not mention that, like, because you see the quite a presentation as well, that people lost the security, and they're going to say like, oh, I forgot what I want to say. Oh, and then they're gonna quiet. They're gonna look in the corner, and it's like, oh, what? Yeah. Oh, yes, that's what I want to say. And then you put the show off, because people are going to say like, what's going on? Because people are focusing on what you try to share. But if you're just going to, talk about like, oh, I forgot. Oh, yeah. Oh, what was the name again? Oh, I forgot. Just don't think about it. Keep talking.
You know what? It is right, because we're looking for excuse. Oh my God, I forgot that word. Yeah, exactly. Just pause a second and then just carry on, don't you? We don't have to draw attention to it. If we draw attention to things, that's when it becomes an issue for our audience, as well as, you know, making it, oh my God, they'll notice it. We don't have to. Exactly right. Just carry it through. And one of the points you said, of course, with slides, they are visual aids. They're not the presentation. So we do want to have them there to support us, not to become that presentation. And finally, I think that point mentioned is the preparation. I mean, you said 5 weeks, but I would always say Prepare as early as you can. Don't let that worry, that anxiety stop you, make you think that you can just do it in the last moment. Also, I've been guilty as well. Don't think about the presentation. You don't get nervous, but say you do have to think about it eventually. That day comes up. And people, when I started doing presentations, I sometimes say to my clients, how long do you prepare, trying to get some idea? And say, I just do it the day before. I do it a couple of hours before. That's what they tell me. And then later on, I realize they don't. They do it a lot earlier, but they just try and put this persona out there that they're so good, they don't need to prepare. But people do. Professionals and people who do things well prepare, like you'd expect from anybody to do as well. So that's a key point as well. Faisal, what thoughts do you have to share on this?
So I started to use a lot of slides to help me aid in my master classes. So I teach a lot of master classes on Zoom at the moment. I used to do a lot in presentations in face-to-face in central London, and in that one we used to have like Bill said, you got to really involve the audience. I love involving the audience. I love getting interaction, banter with them, because that's one of the things I'm teaching them is about how to interact, banter, and enjoy yourself. So involving the audience, getting them, asking them questions, because sometimes, when you're constantly speaking to them, it gets annoying. That I doze off. So I'm asking them questions. I'm getting them to do exercises, fun, just getting involved with each other as well. So that I find really useful. And the slides, I have not too much text on the slides, but what I do is it's a reminder for me, this is the flow, this is the framework, this is the structure. So I use that as my structure, like, okay, this is the next point, and then the next slide, okay, this is what we're going to talk about. Then I expand on that, ask the audience, what do they think, what's their version of the world, how they see it, and how we can marry that up, and then move to the next point. And what I found in especially my audience, I used to teach a lot to women before, and I realized they hated slides. So I was teaching very much of when I have to gauge my audience. If they're very much left-brainers, techie kind of audience, they love visual slides, reference points. If I'm teaching more of the feminine audience, so people who are more into their emotions, then less slides, more feeling, different words I would use. So depending on my audience, I would adjust and kind of like alter my presentation to that. But now, because it's predominantly guys, men, I have a lot of slides because I love the visual reference points, and they can see and visualize a journey and like a blueprint that they're going through on. Over to you, Andy.
But the key point is knowing the audience, isn't it? Knowing how you can serve them, how you can help and support them. Very much a case of knowing the audience, which is what we'd always want to do as well. I think slides do have to be there for a purpose. When we're creating them, have them there for a reason, each slide. And yet, not a script. I think that's a key point there as well. We're not a full...
Absolutely not a script, yeah. And sometimes, on a slide, you can have maybe one or two words.
Yeah.
And say, okay, cool, I'm talking about boundaries, or I'm talking about this, or I'm talking about that. So they're more like triggers for me, saying, okay, this is what we're going to be talking about. And I love what I've done on the slides. I mean, we had a presentation last night, and the speaker was making 5 key points, but they didn't use any PowerPoints or slides. And I can feel it, and I can see it in my own learning and the audience learning. They were like, okay, it'd be great to have some visual reference points on that. So yeah, absolutely, they're great markers, they're great path for us to understand and visualize. And when they're numbered as well, they can see, okay, this is the beginning, this is the end. And what I noticed with the slides, it brings in more certainty feeling as well. So they know where they are in the journey. So they're less left to uncertainty. So they're more relaxed to take it in.
Right, and that is exactly the key point. They're relaxed and they're taking it in, which is what we always want our audience to be in. And so we talked about there, and Faisal mentioned the idea you can have the keywords on the slide, so that gives you some direction. And certainly if you're using PowerPoint, you can have a few keywords in the presenter mode if you're using a screen on your laptop. So again, a few keywords to keep you on track as well if you want to. In the note section, only you see it, nobody else would see that. And same with the Keynote is the Mac version. But again, it's just keywords, it's not scripts. If we've got a script, we're just reading it. The tonality is different. Our energy is different. The words are even different. So it's just key words there to help us stay on track, to save us and take away some of that concern that we may have about forgetting our words as well. Stefan, I know you touched on some bits earlier. Would you like to add some more thoughts on this?
Yeah, I have this thing in my head that success is really hard to celebrate by yourself. And I believe it's also very hard to go onto any stage without having any interaction beforehand. If you do exactly what you, Andy, mentioned before, that you are sitting in a corner and you do worry, I believe you're pushing those walls so close to yourself that you start to question pretty much everything. We said so many times that when we're well prepared, we're going on stage, we know exactly the first two sentences, and then it's gummy bear in between, and we know how we're gonna nail this presentation and how we end it. But when we are sitting in that dark little corner by ourselves before that presentation, I really believe that those walls are just moving in closer and closer and closer, unless you're a robot and or you're just an arrogant person that believes that, you're the best thing since sliced bread. But most human beings, we question ourselves. We're maybe not as super confident with ourselves as other people believe. So for me, just like success is hard to celebrate by myself, I also find it very, very hard to prepare myself by myself. So if I can do what you mentioned, you both, Bill and Andy, when you can have a conversation with people beforehand, maybe between other talks, you're out to the coffee machine, you introduce yourself, etc. That's a beautiful thing. There's other moments where you can't do that. So again, coming back to musical performances, you're backstage, you're in full makeup and everything. You don't have an option to go out into the audience and shake hands. So you're pretty much walking out in the dark. So then that means that I have to talk and have that push up with people backstage, be it a sound tech guy or whatever. And for me, maybe that's just me again, I talk about everything but my presentation. I talk about kids, I talk about, I don't know, favorite colors, whatever it may be, but that's nothing, absolutely nothing to do with what I'm gonna talk about on stage. I really want to get my head completely out of it. And then the moment I walk on stage, that's when I go, here we go. We rehearsed this 250,000 times. We've been around and have been doing this since the invention of sand. So we know what we're doing. Here we go. And that way I do not get into that corner where I start to question my beginning, my middle, and my end, because I don't want to get into that moment. I prepared, I thought long and hard about how I'm going to start this presentation, what I want to deliver, what I want the audience to take home. And so I'm not going to change that. But I have the tendency, when I'm by myself and I'm thinking, but the guy before me, he just had this amazing introduction, and there was this Bill guy, and he came out with this 1960s rock and roll references and film references, and he was so funny, and I better come up with a joke, right? And it's just, no, Stefan, calm down. Take a breather. Let's talk to this sound guy. So how many years are you doing this? Okay, cool. You still enjoy it? Awesome. Well, great job. I mean, you're probably the only one in here that didn't pay, right? Yeah. What? You learned a lot? Yeah. By the way, if I completely mess up that presentation now, can I have half of your sandwich? He will crack up. He will look at me. He will give me a smile. He's my new brother. If anything happens on stage, I know I got a friend. And now, ladies and gentlemen, Stefan Bollinger. And I go up and I start my presentation. It was 1977, blah, 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 whatever it may be. So I need to have someone that helps me, that is around, maybe someone I know, someone I've never seen before, but it has to do nothing with my presentation. And so I believe preparation and success is very hard alone.
It is hard alone. I love that. The way you're finding someone else to talk to, somebody else again to get out of that head rather than being in that world. Because you're right, there can be a tendency to start changing things. All those things that we've prepared, we've practiced, and now in the moment we want to change it. And that's never, ever the time to talk to people. You say, when I'm going to go to events, I never go, hi, I'm the keynote speaker. I'm here to do this. Just chat, be friendly to people. And yeah, never talk about the content either. I totally love that as well. So we're coming up to the top of the hour. So I'm going to get a final brief thought from our amazing panel. Yes, we're going to delve in a little bit more, get a final thought to help you with your public speaking as well in the final 5 or so minutes. So we go Arnold, Faisal, Stefan and Bill. If you could share a final thought to help our wonderful people.
Yeah, that's Stefan. Briefly, right? just to
Thank you.
Yeah, so I just want to say about like presentations. Just don't worry about the slides. Just prepare. Take your time. Don't let the presentation take over you. So if you do that, you will be fine. So this is the briefest one I have. Over to you, Faisal.
Thank you, Arnold. So my wisdom would be practice. You gotta get practice. And I love the quote from Dr. Steve Harris. And he said, the feeling of confidence comes after the act of confidence. So that means we just keep practicing. Over to you, Stefan.
Thank you very much. And Arnold, you just have to mention that I talk too much. Don't you think that I hear that from my wife enough at home? Do I need to hear that here as well? My tip is simply talk about things that you know. Public speaking is not just on a big stage or it's everywhere. And the more we know about a subject, the less we have to worry about. Because if we forget a sentence, well, we know the material so in depth that we can just move on. There's a lot more to say than we have time for, especially when I talk. There's always seems to. Bill, save me.
After we know our content so well, let's remember that we're there to serve. And let's remember that the stage is not a star place. It's not your big banner across the top. The minute you get on that stage, you want to make sure that you're serving that audience. So always remember those most important people in the room are out there in those chairs, and you're there to serve them. Andy?
Oh, amazing tips there and stretches to help you. Thank you to Bill, Stefan, Faisal, Arnold, and to you for joining us as well. We will be back again with another special session to help you with your public speaking. In the meantime, please do reach out, connect to all our amazing experts here today, and we look forward to you joining us again real soon. Until then, take care, everybody. Bye-bye for now.